The School of Hard Knocks 23 took place at the Subway Soccer Centre in Calgary. Professional and amateur fighters from across Canada battled it out in the Hard Knocks cage.
To the School of Hard Knocks.
Ladies and gentlemen, this School of Hard Knocks fight is an amateur bout in the 185-pound division and is brought to you by Urban Optique. And now, let's meet the fighters.
My name is Ryan Valentine. Cage side here with Jeremy Valentine as we get set for a night of fight.
He's fighting out of Grand Prairie. Please welcome Dan Westbrook.
So Dan Westbrook makes his way to the cage out of the Hey-Ho Dojo in Grand Prairie, Alberta, making his amateur debut at 185 pounds ahead of a great night of fights. Jeremy, maybe you can help me with the rules for the fights tonight, amateur and pro rules. Of course, everybody knows the pro rules, but why don't you walk us through the differences with amateur here under the Calgary Commission?
Few changes with the amateur rules. The way the Calgary Commission has set it up, they want to protect their amateur athletes. So a few things that you're not going to see. You're not going to see knees or kicks to the head in the standing position. You're also going to see elbows to the head in the standing position. When they get fists are absolutely legal. When they do get down to the ground, there is no typical ground and pound as it were, so you're not going to see any strikes to the head of a downed opponent. So you may see a couple amateurs actually take a knee if they're getting rocked on standing, because as soon as that knee is down, there's no longer the ability to be able to strike your opponent to the head. The other rules, no twisting leg locks, and they really focus on making sure that those fighters are remaining active on the ground. The officials might be a little quicker to stand them up because there is no striking to the head.
Now, speaking of our fighters, Dan Westbrook, of course, making his amateur debut out of the Hey-Ho Dojo in Grand Prairie. Talk to me about last night at the weigh-ins about how he is focusing on this fight, but expects to have a fair amount of nerves headed into his first fight.
Well, and I've said this before in previous fights. The first time you step into a cage, it looks like you're ready to go, and you're of course wanting to fight, and you've been in the training and you've got hit before. But the first time that somebody who's not your training partner, somebody who's not your standard person comes in and punches you in the face, you either like it or you don't like it. And amateurs is a great way to be able to test that out and see whether it's something that you want to do or something you don't want to do.
Now Dan comes out of the Hey-Ho Dojo. Not only is Dan the first fighter in Hard Knocks for the Hey-Ho Dojo, he's also the first ever full MMA rules fighter for the dojo. Only a year old, out of Grand Prairie, and so in steps to the cage, the first ever fighter that they've put on the mat.
And definitely looking forward to seeing what Hey-Ho has to offer us.
And his opponent. He's coming to you out of Calgary. This is Jason Reed.
Now Jason Reed comes from Dynamic MMA. Now we were just talking about the Hey-Ho Dojo and how that was their first ever fighter stepping into the cage. Not so much the case with Dynamic MMA. They've normally put between 4 to 5 fighters a card together for the Hard Knocks Fighting Championship. Tonight, no different. I believe they've got 3 fighters on the card, and Jason looking to continue the tradition of his gym.
Yeah, Dynamic MMA has been a very successful gym for us here at the Hard Knocks Fighting Championship. And the funny thing is you mentioned how many fighters they provide us. They're not a large gym. You're not talking about 60 or 70 guys in here like some of the bigger gyms when you talk UFC. I think the American Kickboxing Academy has over 300 members in their gym. This is a smaller gym in Calgary, and yet they continue to put out really good fighters. It's a product of their system and a product of the training partners that they have there. Great training partners. As these guys are coming up as amateurs, they're learning from guys who came up as amateurs in this system. It's a different set of rules. It's a different set of strategies. An example of a fighter that really has put this forward is Keegan Oliver, who we've seen in the past, really thrives under this system. Not the most powerful guy, but he will take you down and control you on the ground and really shows off that side of taking advantage of the rules here in the Calgary Commission. Dynamic MMA, though, great program, and looking forward to seeing what Jason Reed can give to us.
Now, Jason Reed was supposed to fight in both January and March, had his opponents drop out. Very eager to get started, and he'll be able to do that as soon as we hear from Jay Denance.
The official Hard Knocks fighter introductions. In the ring, paid apparel blue corner, it's his amateur debut. He's 19 years old and stands 6 feet tall. He weighed in at 185 pounds, fighting out of Hey Ho Dojo from Grand Prairie. Please welcome Hard Knocks fighter, Dan the Meerkat Westbrook. And in the Flammans Fitness red corner, it's his amateur debut. He's 27 years old and stands 5 feet, 10 inches tall. He weighed in at 183.5 pounds, fighting out of Dynamic MMA from Calgary. Please welcome Hard Knocks fighter, Jason Reed. This bout will be contested under amateur rules. The referee in charge of the Hard Knocks action is Mr. Len Coivisto.
So Len Coivisto in charge of the action as Dan Westbrook gets set to face off against Jason Reed. Reed in the black trunks out of the red corner. Westbrook in the blue and white trunks out of the blue corner. And we are underway with the School of Hard Knocks 23. Some furious exchanges early. Both fighters looking to end it quick.
Well, and there's a great takedown there. Well-timed, stepping in on the punch was Jason Reed, but he's right back up, and here's a guillotine. This is something that I've talked about in the past. I do not like jumping into a guillotine. It doesn't often go, and you end up tiring out your arms, and you give your opponent a top position, just like we see here. Jason Reed now on top of Dan Westbrook.
So Westbrook tries to work from the bottom, had the guillotine, had to give it up, but after executing a nice takedown, Jason Reed doing a good job of getting back up quickly.
Nice catch there as well.
And driving through it, trying to take him down and take him up against the fence. Westbrook doing a nice job in the early going of controlling the pace, Jeremy.
Well, in these, and you look at Dan Westbrook took a nice little shot and recovered immediately with the takedown. Not much to do up in Grand Prairie other than fight. It's pretty cold up there for those of you who don't necessarily know. And Dan Westbrook, again, showing a little bit of toughness here, and it looks like he's keeping coming forward.
Reed landing a couple nice punches there. A big left hand coming across. Westbrook looked a little dazed. That left continues to land as the hand of Westbrook dropping down a little too low, I'm sure, for his coach's liking. Reed scoring here in the second, or as we approach the midway point of round number 1.
Yeah, 1 minute 30 seconds left on our feature clock, and you see that in the bottom right corner of your screen. Great action here. I'm concerned that Jason Reed might have come out a little too fast. I could be wrong, but we have 3 3-minute rounds, and those hands will get really heavy going into the third round if Dan Westbrook can hold on.
Already breathing with his mouth open, but as are both fighters, because again, this isn't a training session anymore. Those left hands continuing to land from Jason Reed as Westbrook, not much defense for him, and is starting to look a little dazed up against the cage. Big uppercut and coming over with a left. Westbrook trying to feed back, but he's eating 2 for every 1 he lands.
Yeah, now down on the ground, and no punches to the head now in this position. Right up in front of us, and Jason Reed gonna let him up, and Dan Westbrook is happy to get up.
Well, when you're as successful as Reed has been on his feet thus far, and Westbrook's just kind of falling forward, not much behind his punches, he's going to have to take this fight to the ground if he wants to survive even the end of the first round.
The funny thing is you look at the faces of both these fighters, it looks like more damage has been done to Jason Reed than to Dan. That's a huge shot. And Len Covisto calls his fight. Wow.
Knocks him out with the left, does Jason Reed to get the first win of his amateur MMA career, and not much answer for the hands from Dan Westbrook as Reed got in, and we'll see here on the replay, it looked like Westbrook had landed a good shot, but just was out of it and came over with another left hand, and that was the end of the fight.
Yeah, that was the one, and great striking, very accurate striking by Jason Reed. Very impressed by how well he was able to land those shots and how accurate they were right on the jaw.
Thank you goes out to HSC Integrated, the official ambulance service for School of Hard Knocks Calgary events, for helping us to keep all of the Hard Knocks fighters safe in their competitions.
So pushing his amateur record to 1-0, Jason Reed from Dynamic MMA, continuing the tradition of Dynamic of showing some great fighters here. We are waiting for the official decision to come in. He's only been training for 8 months, says Jason Reed. So this is a guy who's only way to go is up from here, and he continues to do a very good job of training with a fantastic gym at Dynamic MMA. Good friends with Jesse Pearson, who we've seen fight here in the past, and he was one that brought him here.
Official decision brought to you by Urban Optique. The winner by referee stoppage due to unanswered blows at 2 minutes and 42 seconds in the very first round, in the red corner, Jason Reed!
1-0 is Jason Reed. He's going to be with Ryan in the center of the cage.
I'll get you here, center of the cage. You win the first fight of your amateur career. It's got to feel pretty good for you.
Yeah, it feels awesome, man. I was pumped up to get in here.
Now, we'll have the replay here queued up in just a minute. There we go. Walk us through the end of the fight here.
To tell you the truth, it was all kind of a blur at the moment. I hit him pretty good there, and then he fell down, and then I just knew he was done right there.
Now, earlier in the fight, you had a chance to take his back here down right in front of us, but instead you let him stand back up. Looks like it was the right choice.
Yeah, my coaches told me no matter what happens, let him get back up. That's his. He's going to be a lot better on the ground, so.
So, in other words, people need to watch out for your hands.
Yeah, definitely, man. Hands.
And we'll see you back in the Hard Knocks cage?
Definitely.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, one more time for your winner, Jason Reed.
To find out more about Hard Knocks Fighting and upcoming Hard Knocks events, please visit hardknocksfighting.com.
This School of Hard Knocks fight is an amateur bout in the 135-pound division and is brought to you by Hotel Blackfoot. And now, let's meet the fighters. She's fighting out of Fort St. John's, British Columbia. Please welcome Robin Combs.
Robin Combs comes to the cage, the winner of her first amateur fight against Shalur Jones here in the Hard Knocks cage just a couple months ago. And it took a decision victory, but it was decidedly one-sided in the favor of Robin Combs, who just kept punching and punching and punching. And Shalur Jones never really mounted any offense against Combs. So it'll be interesting to see against potentially a stronger opponent than she had before, what Robin Combs is able to do in the cage.
Well, Robin mentioned that the first fight opened her eyes to what she could actually do in the cage. You'd be amazed at how a fighter can discover another gear when they're stepping into each fight, and especially your amateur debut. Again, we talked about you not necessarily knowing how you're going to react the first time that somebody punches you in the face, and obviously Robin dominated her opponent as Shalur Jones.
Yeah, and we talked about what she was looking at for this fight. She said, despite the fact that she beat Shallura Jones pretty much around the cage, and full credit to Shallura Jones, who came back to win her next fight and greatly improved. But at the time she fought Robin Combs, all she had to offer was stalking forward and keep coming and keep pressing the action. And now, in talking to Robin at the weigh-ins last night, she said that she wants to practice. She's been practicing her aggressiveness, her ability to stalk forward, the ability to press the action instead of just counter-punching for 9 minutes and taking a decision.
Well, it's all about making an impression on the judges, that's for sure, especially in such a short fight.
And her opponent, she's coming to you out of Calgary. Please welcome Chris Pomerleau.
So Chris Pomerleau gets a cheer from the crowd, a hometown fighter out of Calgary. MMA University is at the gym she calls home, making her amateur debut. 22 years old, stands 5'10", which will give her a significant height advantage over Robin Combs.
Yeah, 5'10" at 135 pounds is decidedly tall. We have men's fighters that are fighting at 155, 165 that are 5'10". Chris Pomerleau's been training since January, and she hasn't had the opportunity really to get in the cage yet, but she's ready. She's ready to come in. She says she's coming in wanting to strike. She didn't watch Robin's fight in the past because she didn't want to get locked into strategy of an opponent and wanted to more have her own strategy going forward.
Well, and in talking to her, she also mentioned that she didn't really think that a fight that happened that long ago, the fight for Robin almost 4 or 5 months ago now, might not show the ability of the fighter that she had to fight. So she wants to just focus on her game plan and said that MMA University, like a family, and that's even more appropriate when you find out her boyfriend is also fighting tonight. Phil Towler will make his debut later tonight as well. So both fighters going home to hopefully celebrate together, commiserate together, but either way they'll be headed home to talk about their fights tonight.
Well, don't forget, the family that fights MMA together stays together.
Yes,
I think that's the way that we go.
I'm pretty sure that's the expression.
Yeah, and you're talking about Chris. She's hoping to come out really hard in the first minute. She discussed that she wanted to really push the pace, be the one that is coming forward and stalking forward against Robin Combs, and we'll see if that ends up happening. We're going to go to Jaden Nance, who's in the center of the cage, with the official announcement.
And now, the official Hard Knocks fighter introductions. In the Rig Pig Apparel blue corner, she's 1-0 as an amateur, 28 years old, and stands 5 feet, 5 inches tall. And weighed in at 134 1/2 pounds, fighting out of Dragon MMA from Fort St. John's. Please welcome Hard Knocks fighter, Robin Combs! And in the Flamins Fitness red corner, it's her amateur debut. She's 22 years old and stands 5 feet, 10 inches tall. And weighed in at 136 pounds, fighting out of MMA University from Calgary. Please welcome Hard Knocks fighter, Chris the Punisher Pomerleau! This bout will be contested under amateur rules. The referee in charge of the Hard Knocks action is Mr. Brian Beauchamp.
So Brian Beauchamp in charge of the action. Robin Combs in the blue trunks out of the blue corner. The shorts for Chris Pomerleau as she comes out of the red corner, the black shorts. And we are underway. And Combs throws the first shot. That one deflected by Pomerleau. Looks like Pomerleau's going to have a big reach advantage.
Yeah, and a smile on her face. I don't know many who go into a fight smiling, but good for Chris. Wow, big shot there. Nice left hook, and it's got Robin Combs backing up.
Well, again, in her first fight, Robin Combs did not face much in the way of opposition, especially striking from her opponent. But tonight seems to be different, as a couple rights and lefts have already made their way through, although Combs has landed a couple of her own, but it seems to be that the reach advantage playing into it early here in favor of Chris Pomerleau.
No, absolutely. The thing that we need to watch for Chris Pomerleau is as she's snapping out one hand, she's punching with the other before the other hand retreats to return to her chin. So when she's punching in bunches, those hands aren't coming back, and if Robin Combs can time that, she's going to be able to counterpunch. But I'm sure her corner's going to notice that and hopefully make an adjustment before the next round.
Minute 50 to go, three-minute rounds. A big right hand there from Pomerleau.
Do you see her head snap back?
That I did, and you could hear the crowd behind us appreciating what Pomerleau was able to do with that right hand.
And still smiling, so Pomerleau stalking forward, perhaps maybe a little bit of an intimidation thing, saying, I'm enjoying punching you in the face.
Trying to get her up to the cage, another knee thrown, the clinch, also very effective for Pomerleau so far. No quitting Combs, though. Caught the punch and moves up against the cage. You can hear knee being called for by the fans, but not necessarily her coaches.
Well, fans know MMA too.
That they do.
Especially here in Calgary.
There's a bit of a break, a bit of a mouse under the eye, probably from that right hand on the face of Robin Combs. One side of her face seems to have taken a bit more damage than the other.
See, and at this point, you look at Chris Pomerleau being smart here. She's not necessarily pushing for the action. She's got to know that she's won the round at this point, just with the much more effective striking and cage control. So no need to necessarily push and put yourself in a bad position for a counterpuncher, because again, you look at Robin Combs, has a good solid build and probably able to put a pretty good shot in there if she catches her. Good leg check.
Kick. A bunch of punches making it through there after the leg kick got checked, and just under 10 seconds remaining here in round number one, and Robin Combs was in trouble. That is the end of the first round, and Chris Pomerleau gives one for the fans on her way over to let her know that to let them know that she appreciates their support.
Yeah, we're gonna look at the replay here of some of the action. Those are leg kicks, and there's that left hand followed by a right and then another left. There's multiple big shots there. But again, the one thing I'm concerned, and this is nitpicking at this point, but Chris Pomerleau's hands are right down by her chest and not up by her chin. And that's something that Orestes Bertrand, who's in the corner there, is definitely going to be talking about, keeping those hands up. It only takes one punch in MMA, one shot right on the off button, and you want to be able to make sure that your hands are interrupting that.
Well, you wouldn't have a DVD full of the UFC's greatest comebacks if you couldn't just knock somebody out with a single punch. And you're right, Chris Pomerleau's got to be aware of that. Also, I thought she had a little in the punches in the flurry that we saw a moment ago, and we'll just take a look at this replay here. But it looks as though as she's stalking her, she's almost not got that killer instinct yet. When she had her up against the cage and had her in trouble, she didn't swarm and try and finish. And when Robin turned and kind of effectively ran away from her, Chris just kind of waited for the round to finish. When that last 10 seconds is coming, you got to try and, at any point you have to try and finish the fight. A little more aggressiveness, but again, making her amateur debut. So again, maybe nitpicking at this point as we get set for round number two. So Robin Combs in the blue trunks, out of the blue corner, out of the red corner. In the black and white trunks is Chris Pomerleau. And again, a big smile on the face of Pomerleau as she approaches. Although she took a right hand for her trouble, smile not going anywhere.
Some people just enjoy punching, and she's enjoying it right now. 3 or 4 big shots there, all hooks landing, and I can understand why Robin Combs might be backing up at this point.
Again, a big reach advantage for Chris Pomerleau, and she's putting it to good use. Going forward, working the jab, and then, like you said, those hooks have been landing throughout this fight.
Well, and a little bit of red leg there by Chris Pomerleau, because a couple nice leg kicks landed by Robin Combs, and they haven't been checked. They haven't even been acknowledged at this point. So maybe that's a strategy as Robin Combs can put forward and maybe attack that front leg, take away that power base for those shots.
Another right hand got through over the guard of Robin Combs, and her face is starting to get a little chewed up.
Well, it's almost a scowl now, less than a smile. Maybe she wants to finish her off at this point, but.
And Robin Combs will have something to say with it. Some of her counter punches getting through, but it does look like she's taking the brunt of the damage. Looks like a standing guillotine attempt there by Pomerleau, but that didn't get through. Big knee to the midsection.
1 minute, 18 seconds remaining on our feature clock. Of this, the second round in our second fight here at the Hard Knocks Fighting Championship, number 23 already. Wow, Ryan.
Yeah, and not going to slow down anytime soon, with 24 and 25 happening in the next 3 weeks. So Chris Pomerleau again stalking Robin Combs, has landed the better of the strikes this round. Another right hand snaps back the head of Robin Combs, who's proving to have a very durable chin, Jeremy.
Yeah, she's holding on really tight. I'm surprised that she hasn't taken a knee just to be able to get away from this onslaught, but right in our face now, and still trying to defend. Some big shots there, and now just grabbing on is Chris Pomerleau.
Robin Combs has eaten a significant number of punches, and she is still game. The smile not quite as wide on the face as Chris Pomerleau, as she maybe thought that was going to be the end of the fight there.
Well, and credit to Brian Beauchamp for not stopping it. In an amateur fight, a referee is again wanting to protect the athlete. 10 seconds remain in the round now. But Robin Combs still defending, and look at her good solid position, still hands by her chin. So far she's lost these first 2 rounds, or at least in our opinion, but wow, she's really sticking in there to this.
Well, and it looks as she's going to get to a third round, and anything can happen. Like we said a moment ago, Robin Combs in tough, but in this fight, Chris Pomerleau, though, likely the winner of the first 2 rounds. I can't imagine a judge scoring it any differently, but I've said that before and been completely wrong. And as we take a look at the replay here, again, more of Chris Pomerleau just stalking Robin Combs and landing punches.
Yeah, you watch her continue forward. A nice right there that kind of hit on the ear there, and just punch after punch. It's like she has no off button at this point. Both fighters have no off button. Robin doesn't have one on her chin, and Chris Pomerleau doesn't have one on her fists.
Now, so far, so good for Chris Pomerleau, but Robin Combs looking good in her corner. And again, the stand versus sit down mentality, as Pomerleau standing to show she's fresh, whereas Combs taking the rest. And that mental aspect plays heavily as you get into even the pro fights, Jeremy.
Yeah, you look at every gym is a little bit different and has their own philosophy on what they want to do. I know that a lot of the Brazilian gyms prefer the standing up because a lot of their fights, unofficial fights, don't happen in a cage. They happen in a street, in a parkade somewhere, so they don't really have an opportunity to sit down in between their rounds. But you look at the Brazilian training techniques again at MMA University. Orestes Bertrand, an accomplished fighter in his own right, getting ready for some more MFC fights coming forward.
So round number 3, third and final 3-minute round here in the amateur ranks. 5-minute rounds later tonight once the pros take the cage. As Robin Combs comes out of the blue corner in the blue trunks, it's black and white trunks out of the red corner for Chris Pomerleau. And again, the striking and the smile just keep coming from Chris Pomerleau.
Yeah, absolutely. And she's, again, doing a better job of keeping her hands up, but needs to bring that hand right back to her chin, because the last thing you want is to dominate first 2 rounds and then just get caught the wrong way. There's so many fighters in the history of this sport that can say, I was dominating them up to the last 10 seconds. I lost concentration and got caught.
Now at this point, Jeremy, if you're Robin Combs, do you try and take the fight to the ground and try and finish? with a submission?
Unfortunately, with the amateur rules and with Chris Pomerleau still being appearing so very fresh, I might just try and go for broke here. Taking them down, you can't finish the fight really with head strikes, and trying it for submission. I don't know quite Robin Combs' ability on the ground or Chris Pomerleau's ability to defend on the ground, but anything to try and change up this current structure, getting in behind, maybe rushing forward, something a little more unpredictable. She's proven that she has the chin to be able to rush forward and take a few shots coming in.
Both fighters exchanging punches, but not much damage landing. Biggest one of the round probably belongs to Combs a few moments ago.
And a nice kick there by
Combs. Yeah, nice kick to the midsection as well.
And showing cage control, nice knees to the inner thigh. Those don't feel good, especially the next day. Don't necessarily feel them, but they're training stoppers because you have a bruise on your leg for the next 2 weeks.
So more punches getting through. Combs trying to get wrist control, but unable to do so.
And just being patient with these shots. No need to rush here for Chris Pomerleau. Obviously winning the first 2 rounds and just trying to remain in control. 50 seconds remain on our feature clock. You see that in the bottom right-hand corner. Of course, it is round 3.
Again, Combs around the center of the cage, controlling the cage at this point, but I think Pomerleau, like you said, Jeremy, just content not to take a knockout punch here in the last 30 seconds.
A win is a win, whether it's a knockout or a decision. You never want to leave it in the hands of the judges, but I think if any judge scores this anything other than Chris Pomerleau victory, there's something really wrong.
Less than 10 seconds remaining now, or just about 10 seconds remaining now in round number 3, the third and final round, and Robin Combs going for broke, trying to throw that big last strike and get in there and finish this fight with just a few seconds left. But like you mentioned, Jeremy, it was likely going to be a Chris Pomerleau victory, and that is the end of the third and final round. Chris Pomerleau will be the winner against Robin Combs, who proved that she could take everything that Chris Pomerleau had to give in that fight.
If you look, there's a couple opportunities here, but some great shots landed by Robin Combs throughout that, including a nice big kick to the midsection, a nice shot there that you see on our replay, another jab there that lands. So if every round was like that, it'd be a lot tougher to call. The problem is the first 2 rounds were so clearly dominated by Chris Pomerleau. Looking at Chris Pomerleau, she does share the body type of a lot of the successful female competitors. Very, very tall, very athletic, and this is an opportunity, and this is a very impressive showing that she showed. Didn't find herself in trouble at all during the fight, and we'll hopefully see more from her coming forward in the future. Earlier on, we mentioned there's lots of opportunities in the women's division. It's just a brand new start to the sport, and we've seen even Ronda Rousey, the current Strikeforce champion, was a former Hard Knocks fighter.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have the official decision brought to you by Hotel Blackfoot. The winner by unanimous decision in the red corner, Chris the Punisher Pomerleau.
Wins her amateur debut, an impressive showing. She's going to be in the center of the cage with Ryan.
Chris, we'll get you to look into the camera over here and get to talk to not only me, but a lot of fans here in the audience tonight to see you fight.
Yeah, it was really awesome.
Now, making your amateur debut tonight, obviously you were eager to get into the cage because that smile did not come off your face for the entire 9 minutes.
I actually think I was laughing at one point, which is probably not a good thing.
So walk me through the game plan tonight, because obviously it was to come out and win this fight on your feet, and you were certainly successful doing that.
Yeah, I've always been kind of more of a stand-up person. Eventually I'll get more into the ground, but I figured I'd keep her on my feet because I'm so tall that it'd be a little harder for her.
Now, walk us through the replay here, up against the cage, throwing a couple knees and really doing it your way.
Yeah, that was actually passed to me by my wonderful boyfriend right here. He was like, just get her up against the cage and kill that leg so she can't walk, so I was trying to do that.
Now, you mentioned your boyfriend training with your boyfriend. He's also fighting later tonight. Now, if things don't go his way later, what do you get to say to him in the car ride on the way home?
That he's a little bitch.
So, challenge laid, he's got to avoid being the little bitch. Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it one more time for your winner, Chris Pomerleau.
So again, Chris Pomerleau will win her amateur debut at 135 pounds. Excellent fighting, great technique throughout, and a little bit of showing off here for her fans.
To find out more about Hard Knocks Fighting and upcoming Hard Knocks events, please visit hardknocksfighting.com.
Now, the official Hard Knocks Fighter introductions. In the Rig Pig Apparel blue corner, he's 1-0 as an amateur, 19 years old, and stands 5 feet, 10 inches tall. He weighed in at 169 pounds. Fighting out of Tilt MMA from Calgary, please welcome Hard Knocks fighter, Gertie Frankie. In the Two Amigos Moving and Storage red corner, it's his amateur debut. He's 22 years old and stands 5 feet, 10 inches tall. He weighed in at 170.5 pounds. Fighting out of Aetos Pancration from Calgary, please welcome Hard Knocks fighter, David Kuche. This bout will be contested under amateur rules. The referee in charge of the Hard Knocks action is Mr. Len Koivisto.
Len Koivisto back in charge in the center of the cage. Gertie Frankie with a very healthy cheering section here at the Hard Knocks Fighting Championship, as he has both times that he's fought here, and comes out and starts with throwing a jab. Kuche coming in with strikes of his own and doing a very effective job of keeping Frankie at bay here in the early going.
Yeah, definitely some powerful shots coming from Kuche, but not very accurate. Catching the leg now of Gertie Frankie. Frankie able to get out, and another shot to the groin. Seems to be there happens to be themes every single fights that we've come in. Sometimes they're all quick finishes, sometimes they're all going, but today's fight, kicked in the nuts.
Sometimes it's all red corner, other times it's all blue corner, but you're very right. Tonight certainly seems to be the shake your boys and get them back to action here as he tries to jump them out of his body.
Hard Knocks 22, kicked in the nuts.
The school of Hard Knocks. And Hard Knocks has certainly been the theme tonight. Again, David Kuche trying to recover from a low blow, and Len Koivisto reminding Gertie Frankie not to kick anybody there. Again, certainly not an intentional low blow.
Another caught kick, so this is something that Gertie Frankie has to look out for. It might be that he's telegraphing his kicks, and you look at David Kuche, again, he's throwing very powerful shots. And in on the legs now, trying to take down. He's got a lot of power to him, but Gertie Frankie, when he lands very accurately. It might not be as hard as Kuche is throwing, but again, very accurate.
Well, and you could see Kuche thought about the takedown and then potentially remembered what Gertie Frankie's capable of and gave up on the takedown attempt and put Frankie back down and went back to striking.
Frankie looks very calm and composed for a guy with only one amateur fight under his belt, this being his second.
And just 19 years old as well.
Good snap to that kick, in and back down into a good position. Nice shot landed there. It seems that every time David Kuche lands a shot, he rushes forward. He needs to be patient on that. And now you look at the accurate striking of Gertie Frankie and the blood
and I'm
pouring
pretty
out the
sure that he broke David Kuche's nose with that right hand. as he came across, because as you mentioned, Jeremy, the blood is pouring out of David Kuche's nose at this moment, mouth open, trying to breathe. I spoke to Bryce Berry during the intermission. He said that he didn't quit from the pain of the strikes. He quit because he thought he was drowning, the blood going back down into his throat from his nose, and was unable to get it clear and was unable to breathe. That may be a problem here going forward for David Kuche as Gertie Frankie looks to take this fight to the ground.
Yeah, Gertie Frankie wants to bring the fight where he's comfortable, and like I mentioned before, there's two ways to finish a double leg. The first one is to pick him up and slam him. The other is to vacate the area, pull him away from the cage as he's leaning on the cage. His back will slide down, successful takedown. Again, look at the nose of David Kuche. It just looks ghastly.
Yeah, certainly damage done by Gertie Frankie here, and you can see the blood all over the back of Gertie Frankie from David Kuche's nose. And Rangi now trying to find potentially a choke up against the cage, maybe looking for a guillotine choke, but it does look like Kuche's got one hand in. But Rangi tilting that back with 20 seconds to go, throwing knees as well up against the cage. David Kuche in some trouble here. Gertie Frankie with just 10 seconds left in round number one has dominated this round up against the cage. Kuche in trouble here in the late going, but Rangi unable to secure another takedown. But the face of David Kuche a bloody mess, and Gertie Frankie a very effective striking performance here after putting on a jiu-jitsu clinic the last time we saw him. Tonight he's throwing his fists. This looks like a kid who's starting to put it all together.
Absolutely. Gertie Frankie's back looks like a William Peterson experiment from CSI. There's blood spatter all over his back as he was dominating that position. The thing that we have to watch out for, as effective as Gertie was, you can see the power behind David Kuche's shots, and they haven't landed clean yet. If he lands one of those clean, it's going to be a very big, dramatic shot when it lands clean.
The doctor coming in to check on David Kuche. And it doesn't look like this fight has been called off, so we will see round number two. We have seen in the past with the amateur fighters, especially when you get into that kind of situation where the fight gets called. And again, fighter safety of paramount importance here in the School of Hard Knocks and anywhere in mixed martial arts, of course. But the School of Hard Knocks always taking care of their fighters, making sure that they are safe to continue, and it looks as though David Kuche is that.
We just saw in the replay the shot that actually did all the damage to the nose, and it was a glancing blow. And this is the thing with the nose. When you hit the nose full on, it doesn't do much damage. You hit it on a glancing blow, and it rattles around with the bone, and that's what causes it to bleed. And the bleeding appears to be under control here for David Kuche, and Gertie Frankie looks ready to go.
So Rangi in the white trunks with the orange trim, the white trunks with the blood on the front belonging to David Kuche. Although he's trying to come in and strike, Gertie landed a big uppercut in there, and backing off there it was David Kuche, and Rangi continuing to stalk him across the cage. But again, Jeremy, like you mentioned, some heavy hands coming from Kuche. If he can land them cleanly, Gertie could be in trouble.
And the difference is, and I've mentioned it in previous events, accuracy when it comes to striking is 100% more important than power. If you hit a guy 100 times with 10% power, his face is going to look like raw meat. You hit him once with 100% power, you might knock him out, and you might not. It's a very low percentage, but now you look at Gertie Frankie now with the top position, a little more time to work, looking to push his opponent against and in the guard of David Kuche.
We'll see what Rangi can do from here. We watched what he did to Mackenzie Sanger earlier in his first fight, and he really dominated once the fight got to the ground. And again, David Kuche describing his jiu-jitsu as at par with where he wants it to be, and we'll see how well he can defend here on the ground against Gertie Frankie.
And Gertie Frankie remaining busy. That's the important thing for the judges. But again, the blood streaming out of the nose. if the doctor stops it with the amount of blood coming out, I don't think that that's probably the best thing. Sometimes you just have to let the guys fight, and sometimes nosebleed. There's a couple fighters that are really famous for getting bloody noses really quick and it not having that big of an effect. You look at someone like Forrest Griffin in the UFC, has a bloody nose about 3 seconds into every fight, but he's a very effective fighter for the entire time.
Both fighters stood back up after not much happening on the ground. Rangi looks to want to work his striking today, and that's what he has been doing thus far. And again, the face of David Kuche is telling the tale of this fight so far as he looks a bloody mess, and Rangi continues to keep coming forward.
And every time Rangi is connecting, blood flies from Kuche's mouth. It doesn't matter where he connects, whether it's a kick or a punch.
Another series of punches up against the cage. Credit Kuche for continuing to stand up because he's eating a lot of punishment, and a timeout now called as we're going to get the doctor to look at, again, Kuche's nose, as again, fighter safety is paramount. The doctor looking at Kuche's nose. Rangi heading over to the neutral corner where he will rest and await his opponent. Communicating with his fans a little, talking to the fans that stand here behind his cage side. But again, the doctor taking a close look at Kuche's nose. And referee Len Coivisto, apparently we are still good to go. Kuche is game to continue. So we will continue here in round number 2 of the Hard Knocks Fighting Championship, fight number 9 on our amateur card, as Gertie Rangi and David Kuche go head-to-head. Rangi with the orange streak across his trunks.
And this looks like David Kuche's coming forward with all he's worth. He thinks he has one last gasp in this fight, and he's coming forward with it. Again, we're down to short time here, and
that is it for David Kuche. Just suffered one too many blows from Gertie Rangi, and Len Coivisto has called this fight. It'll be a busy one for the cleanup crew between fights here. I'm sure we'll have a bit of an extended break as they clean up after this one.
Yeah, excellent display by Gertie Rangi. He was phenomenal throughout in every phase. Seems to be showing up for some fans there in our VIP section. And again, all credit to David Kuche, but Gertie Rangi is a different kind of fighter. We'll look at the replays here, and again, coming forward really heavy is David Kuche, and every single time he does, Gertie Rangi lands 1 or 2 good shots right to the face, and by that time, it looked like David Kuche had enough. He didn't want any more of Gertie Rangi. Credit to him, but again, you can only take so many times to get punched in the face. Okay, it looks like we're waiting for our official decision as it comes in, and look at the face of David Kuche. All credit to him, Gertie Rangi, all smiles in the corner. Here's the end of the fight here. And Len Coivisto had enough. He saw the punishment that David Kuche was taking, took the safety into concern. We're going to go to Jaden Ants, who's going to be in the center of the cage with the official decision.
We have the official decision, brought to you by Urban Mobility. The winner by referee stoppage at 2 minutes and 58 seconds in the second round. In the blue corner, Gertie